The fluorescent lights of the diner hummed, casting a pale glow over the worn laminate countertops and checkered floor. Maria, a young woman with tired eyes but a determined spirit, navigated the narrow aisles with practiced ease. A tray laden with steaming plates balanced expertly on one hand. It was late, past the usual dinner rush, and the diner, typically bustling, had settled into a more subdued rhythm. A few scattered patrons lingered over lukewarm coffee, their conversations a low murmur against the clatter of distant dishes. Maria moved with an almost automatic grace, her focus entirely on the task at hand, the rhythm of her work a familiar comfort against the weariness seeping into her bones. She'd been on her feet for hours, each plate served, each table cleared, a small victory against the relentless march of the clock. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the diner was shattered by a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. A hush fell over the remaining patrons, heads turning almost in unison towards the entrance. Maria, mid-pour of a fresh cup of coffee, paused, her gaze drawn reflexively to the commotion. Standing in the doorway, framed by the neon glow of the open sign, was a figure that seemed to dwarf the entrance itself. It was the Titan Rex Fury, the legendary WWE superstar. Even out of his signature ring gear, in a simple dark t-shirt that stretched tautly across his massive frame, he was unmistakable. His imposing physique, the chiseled jawline, the intense gaze. It was all there, larger than life. A living legend walking into their humble diner. He wasn't alone. A small entourage, equally imposing if less famous, trailed behind him, their presence amplifying the sudden celebrity aura that had descended upon the room. The diner, moments ago, a picture of quiet exhaustion, now buzzed with a palpable, almost electric energy. Whispers erupted, hushed and excited, as people craned their necks for a better look, some fumbling for their phones to snap a quick illicit photo. Maria felt a flicker of surprise, a momentary jolt of recognition. She'd seen him on TV, of course, everyone had, but seeing him in person, in this mundane setting, was an entirely different experience. Rex Fury, seemingly oblivious to the awe he inspired, settled into a booth near the back, his entourage fanning out around him. Maria, still holding the coffee pot, felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. It wasn't every day a national icon graced their establishment. After a moment of hesitation, she took a deep breath, composed herself, and approached their table, her professional demeanor firmly in place. She took their orders with a steady hand, her voice clear and calm, despite the nervous tremor she felt internally. Rex ordered a simple meal: a burger, no cheese, extra pickles, and a glass of water. His voice, a deep rumble, was surprisingly polite. When the time came to pay, Rex reached into his pocket, pulling out a thick leather wallet. As he fumbled with it, trying to extract a credit card, the wallet slipped from his grasp. It landed with a soft thud on the edge of the counter, flipping open slightly as it did. Maria, who was standing nearby, instinctively reached out to retrieve it. Her fingers brushed against the cool leather as she moved to pick it up, and in that fleeting moment, her eyes caught something inside. It was a photograph, a small, slightly faded picture, tucked neatly into one of the wallet's clear plastic sleeves. Her breath hitched. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Her hand froze, hovering inches above the open wallet. A jolt, sharp and undeniable, coursed through her. The woman in the photo, a young woman smiling, her hair swept back from her face, eyes sparkling with a familiar warmth, was undeniably, unmistakably her mother, Elena. From years ago, perhaps even decades, the recognition was instant, visceral. A wave of confusion, cold and disorienting, washed over her. Why? Why would a famous wrestler, a man she had never seen before tonight, be carrying a picture of her mother in his wallet? Maria's mind raced, a whirlwind of disbelief and frantic questions. She quickly, almost frantically, closed the wallet, snapping it shut with a barely perceptible click. Her movements were swift, an attempt to conceal the shock that had momentarily paralyzed her. She handed it back to Rex, her hand trembling ever so slightly, her gaze fixed on his face, searching for any flicker of recognition, any hint of connection. But his expression was impassive, his eyes focused on the transaction, completely unaware of the seismic shift that had just occurred within her. She tried to act normal, to keep her voice steady as she told him the total, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. As Rex completed the payment, Maria felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Her initial shock slowly gave way to a churning internal conflict. She tried to dismiss it, to rationalize it away. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe it was just someone who looked like her mom. People had doppelgangers, didn't they? But the resemblance was too strong, too perfect. It wasn't just a fleeting similarity. It was her mother, Elena, in her younger days, vibrant and full of life. She recognized the curve of her smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, even the style of clothes her mother used to wear when Maria was a small child. The image was seared into her memory, replaying itself over and over. Rex and his entourage finished their meal and left. The famous wrestler oblivious to the profound turmoil he had inadvertently unleashed in Maria's quiet life. The diner slowly returned to its late-night lull. But for Maria, nothing would ever be the same. She couldn't shake the image from her mind. It wasn't just a random photo. It was her mom, looking younger, happier, in clothes she remembered from childhood, a ghost from a past she thought she knew so well. The photo in Rex Fury's wallet was a puzzle piece that simply did not fit into the narrative of her life, a narrative her mother had so carefully constructed. A seed of doubt, cold and insistent, had been planted deep within her, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that she wouldn't rest until she uncovered the truth. Maria grew up in a small, unassuming town, a place where everyone knew everyone else's business, or so it seemed. Yet, despite the close-knit community, her own personal history remained a quiet mystery. It had always been just her and her mother, Elena. Her father was a phantom, a story told in hushed tones, a figure who existed only in the periphery of her mother's carefully constructed narrative. Elena had always said he was a traveling musician, a free spirit who had drifted in and out of her life before Maria was even born, never to look back. It was a romantic, if somewhat melancholic tale, one that Maria had accepted without question for most of her life. Elena had been a tireless provider, working multiple low-paying jobs to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Maria remembered her mother's hands, calloused and worn from years of labor, but always gentle when they stroked her hair or held her close. Elena was often tired, her shoulders slumped after a long shift, but her love for Maria was an unwavering beacon, a constant source of warmth and security. Despite the financial struggles, Maria's childhood had been filled with love, laughter, and the simple joys of a mother's devotion. Yet, Maria also recalled moments when her mother's gaze would drift, unfocused and distant, a veil of sadness momentarily clouding her usually bright eyes. It was as if Elena was holding on to a secret, a heavy burden she carried silently, staring off into a past Maria couldn't see. Maria's childhood memories were a tapestry woven with small, precious details. the specific lullaby her mother sang to her every night, a melody that still brought a pang of nostalgia to her heart. A worn-out teddy bear, its fur matted and eyes missing, which Elena had given her on her 5th birthday, a treasured companion through countless nights, and an overarching sense of stability, a feeling that no matter how difficult things got, her mother would always be there, a steadfast anchor in her young life. She never felt the acute absence of a father figure because Elena, in her boundless love and unwavering strength, had seamlessly filled both roles. However, as she grew older, especially when other children at school spoke of their dads, of fishing trips or baseball games, a quiet curiosity would stir within her. She wondered about the man who had been her other parent, the one who had left before she could even form a memory of him. Occasionally, Elena would make vague, almost cryptic remarks that Maria, as a child, couldn't fully grasp. "I once had a different life," she'd murmur, staring out the window, a wistful look on her face. Or, "Sometimes choices are made for the best, even if they hurt." Maria had dismissed them then as the musings of an adult, words without real meaning to her childish ears. But now, with the faded photograph of her mother in Rex Fury's wallet burned into her mind, those comments took on a new, unsettling significance. They echoed with the weight of untold stories, of hidden sacrifices, and a past far more complex than the simple narrative she had always known. Maria racked her brain, trying to recall if her mother had ever kept photos of other men, or if she had ever mentioned anyone named Rex. Nothing came to mind. Elena had been fiercely private about her past, rarely speaking of anything before Maria's birth, focusing instead on their present and future. The photo in Rex's wallet seemed utterly out of place, a jarring anomaly in her mother's carefully constructed narrative. It was a piece of a puzzle that simply did not belong, a whisper of a history Elena had deliberately kept hidden. The image of her young mother, smiling so brightly in the famous wrestler's wallet, refused to fade. It was too specific, too personal, too undeniably her mother. Maria knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she couldn't let this go. The question of why the Titan Rex Fury possessed such a personal relic of her mother's past gnawed at her, a relentless itch she had to scratch. Dismissing it as a coincidence or a mistaken identity was no longer an option. She needed answers. She needed to understand the connection, the untold story that linked her quiet, hard-working mother to a global superstar. The decision was made. She would find out the truth, no matter what it took. Maria started her investigation discreetly, the internet becoming her first port of call. She typed Rex Fury into the search bar, and a deluge of information flooded her screen. His career trajectory, his rise from obscurity to global wrestling phenomenon, his signature moves, his charitable endeavors. It was all there, meticulously documented across fan sites, news articles, and official WWE profiles. She scrolled through countless images, interviews, and match highlights, absorbing every detail she could find about his public persona. She even delved into his personal life as much as was publicly available, searching for any mention of family, relationships, or a past that might connect to her mother. But there was nothing. No hint of a wife, a long-lost love, or any family history that resonated with Elena's quiet life. His public narrative was one of singular ambition and relentless dedication to his career, seemingly devoid of the kind of personal entanglement that a photograph of her mother would suggest. Frustrated but not deterred, Maria shifted her focus. She tried to recall any friends or relatives her mother might have mentioned, anyone who could shed light on Elena's past before Maria's birth. But Elena had always been a private person, Her circle small, her family distant, and rarely discussed. Most of Maria's knowledge of her mother's early life was gleaned from Elena herself, a carefully curated version of events. There was no one obvious to turn to, no aunt or old friend who might hold the key to this mystery. It was a dead end, at least for now. Then a thought sparked. Rex Fury was staying at a high-end hotel just a few blocks from the diner. It was the kind of place where celebrities often lodged when passing through the city. Maria started subtly asking around among her colleagues at the diner, fishing for information. "Has that wrestler guy been in before?" she'd ask casually, wiping down a counter. "Seems like a regular at that fancy hotel down the street." She tried to make it sound like idle curiosity, a passing comment about a famous patron. Some of the waitstaff confirmed he'd been in a few times before, always with an entourage, always polite. But no one offered any insights into his personal life or any unusual connections. A few days later, Maria took an extra shift, hoping, almost desperately, that Rex Fury would return. Her heart gave a nervous leap when she saw him walk through the door again. Same time, same booth, same entourage. This time, Maria tried to be more attentive, to observe him closely. As he paid, she watched his hand, ready to catch a glimpse of the wallet's contents again. But Rex, perhaps more focused this time, or simply more careful, kept the wallet closed as he handed over his credit card. Maria's chance to confirm her suspicion, to see the photo again, slipped away. She felt a pang of disappointment, a mix of frustration and a renewed sense of urgency. Her unusual interest in Rex Fury, however, did not go unnoticed. Martha, the diner manager, an older woman with keen eyes and an even keener sense of observation, pulled Maria aside one afternoon. Martha had been managing the diner for decades, seen countless faces come and go, and had a knack for reading people. "Everything all right, Maria?" Martha asked, her voice gentle but firm, her gaze direct. "You seem a bit preoccupied lately, especially when that wrestler's around." Maria hesitated. Her first instinct was to brush it off, to offer a vague excuse. She almost confided in Martha, almost blurted out the unbelievable story of her mother's photo in Rex Fury's wallet. But the words caught in her throat. How could she explain it without sounding completely unhinged? Without spreading a wild, unfounded rumor about a celebrity and her mother? She imagined the skepticism, the raised eyebrows. It felt too personal, too outlandish to share without more concrete evidence. "Just curious, Martha," Maria finally managed, offering a weak smile. "He's a big star, you know. Not every day someone like that comes into our diner." Martha nodded slowly, her eyes still searching Maria's face, clearly not entirely convinced. "Right. Well, just make sure you're focusing on your tables, dear. We've got a busy week ahead." Maria nodded, grateful for the reprieve but also frustrated by her inability to share her burden. She realized she couldn't directly confront Rex Fury in the diner again. It was too public, too easy for him to dismiss her as just another overzealous fan. She needed a more subtle approach, a way to get close enough to speak to him without causing a scene, without making herself look like a stalker. She went back to her online research, this time specifically looking for Rex Fury's upcoming appearances in the city. And there it was, a charity event, a meet and greet, a public appearance advertised online for a local children's hospital. It was scheduled for the upcoming weekend. This could be her chance, her one opportunity to approach him on neutral ground, in a setting where a brief, personal interaction might not seem so out of place. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead she had. Maria marked the date, a new resolve, hardening her determination. She would go, and she would find a way to ask him about her mother. The truth, she knew, was waiting just beyond her grasp. The charity event was a whirlwind of flashing lights, excited chatter, and the distinct scent of expensive perfume and catered hors d'oeuvres. Maria felt acutely out of place in her best, yet still modest dress, surrounded by the city's elite and Rex Fury's adoring fans. She clutched her small handbag, her heart a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She navigated through the throng, her eyes constantly scanning for Rex, trying to blend in, to appear as if she belonged. Finally, she spotted him, larger than life even out of his wrestling gear, his powerful frame commanding attention as he greeted people, signed autographs, and posed for photos. He moved with an easy confidence, completely at home in the spotlight. Maria took a deep breath, pushing down the surge of intimidation, reminding herself of her purpose. She joined a long queue of fans waiting for a chance to meet Rex. Each step forward felt like a mile, her mind rehearsing what she would say, how she would phrase the question, without sounding accusatory or insane. When it was finally her turn, standing before him, Rex Fury seemed even more imposing up close. His smile was practiced, his eyes friendly but distant, already scanning for the next person in line. "Hi," Maria began, her voice a little shaky despite her best efforts. I think I saw a picture in your wallet the other night at the diner." She tried to imbue her words with a subtle hint of familiarity, a shared secret, hoping it would cut through the noise of his public persona. Rex Fury's practiced smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then a slight frown. He leaned in slightly, trying to hear her over the din, but his expression clearly conveyed a lack of recognition. "I'm sorry?" he asked, his voice deep, but tinged with a note of polite dismissal. "A picture? Look, I appreciate the support, but I don't discuss personal stuff at these events. I'm here for the charity." He offered a quick, strained smile, already turning his attention to the next fan, a burly man holding a wrestling belt for him to sign. Maria felt a hot flush creep up her neck. She was instantly dismissed, categorized as just another pushy fan trying to pry into his private life. Her carefully constructed opening, her desperate attempt to connect, had fallen flat. She was just a face in the crowd, her urgent question lost in the cacophony. She tried to say more, to explain. "But it was my mother." But the words caught in her throat. He was already signing the belt, his back almost to her. Humiliation washed over her, a bitter taste in her mouth. She felt defeated, embarrassed, and utterly helpless. How could she possibly explain that the woman in his wallet was her mother, without sounding completely unhinged? She realized then that a direct confrontation, especially in such a public setting, was impossible. She needed concrete proof, or at the very least, a much better approach. Back at the diner, the following shift felt heavy, the weight of her failed attempt pressing down on her. Maria moved through her tasks mechanically, her mind replaying the humiliating encounter. It was then that Martha, the diner manager, approached her, a thoughtful expression on her face. Martha had been watching Maria, her earlier observation about Maria's preoccupation with Rex Fury now making more sense. "Maria, can I have a word?" Martha asked, leading her to a quiet corner near the kitchen. Her voice was softer than usual, laced with an unusual seriousness. Maria nodded, bracing herself for a lecture about professionalism, or perhaps a warning about her distraction. "About that Rex Fury," Martha began, her eyes piercing. "And that picture you mentioned. Funny thing is, I think I recognized the woman in it too." Maria froze, her breath catching in her throat. "What?" she whispered, barely audible. Martha nodded slowly, her gaze distant, as if sifting through old memories. "Yeah, I worked at a different restaurant years ago, on the other side of town. A place called the Blue Plate Special. Your mother, Elena, she worked there briefly too. For about a year, maybe a little more." Maria stared, her mind racing. Her mother had never mentioned working at the Blue Plate Special. You knew my mom?" "Not well, not like a close friend," Martha clarified. "But we worked a lot of shifts together. She was a good kid, quiet, but she had a spark. And she was dating someone back then. A young man, an aspiring wrestler, trying to make it big." A shiver ran down Maria's spine. This was it. This was the connection. "What was he like?" she urged, leaning forward, desperate for every detail. Martha paused, her eyes narrowing as she pulled the image from her memory. Tall, strong, very ambitious, always talking about making it big in the wrestling world. He had that kind of charisma, even then. Elena was head over heels for him. You could tell she'd glow whenever he came in or talked about him. Martha sighed softly. They were really in love, you know? The kind of young love you don't forget. Maria's heart pounded. Martha's description painted a vivid picture of a young Rex Fury, before the fame, before the Titan. This wasn't a coincidence. This was her mother, Elena, with Rex Fury. But then, Martha continued, her voice tinged with a touch of sadness, it all just ended. Suddenly. One day Elena was there, bright-eyed and talking about him, and the next she just vanished. Left town without a word, didn't even give notice. I heard she just packed up her bags and left. She looked heartbroken, though, last time I saw her, like someone had ripped her world apart. Martha looked at Maria, a knowing sadness in her eyes. I always wondered what happened, why she left so fast, so quietly. She was so in love and then just gone. It always felt like there was a secret there, a painful one. A cold dread mixed with a surge of understanding washed over Maria. Martha's description, the sudden departure, the heartbreak, it all clicked into place. Her mother's quiet sadness, the absence of a father figure, the cryptic remarks about choices made for the best. It wasn't just a photo in Rex Fury's wallet. It was a fragment of a lost past, a secret history that intertwined her mother's life with that of the famous wrestler. Martha's words were a glimmer of hope, a confirmation that Maria wasn't imagining things. The photo was her mother, and Rex Fury had known her. The missing piece of Maria's life, the enigma of her father, suddenly felt terrifyingly close to being solved. This wasn't just a celebrity encounter. It was a revelation that threatened to rewrite her entire understanding of her family and herself. Martha's story hung in the air, a heavy, almost tangible thing that settled over Maria. The details, sparse as they were, painted a picture Maria had never seen of her mother. Elena, deeply in love, her eyes bright with a future that abruptly dissolved. Martha recalled the aspiring wrestler's ambition, his tall, strong physique, his determination to make it big. She described Elena's sudden, unexplained departure, the heartbreak etched on her face in those final days. Martha had always believed Elena had simply moved on, perhaps to escape the pain of a broken heart or to find a different path. But she had always sensed a deeper, untold story, a secret that Elena had carried with her when she left town without a trace. Martha's voice was filled with a lingering bewilderment, a curiosity that had gone unanswered for decades. now finding an unexpected echo in Maria's own quest. Maria listened, her mind a whirlwind of fragmented memories and newfound revelations. Her mother's quiet moments of sadness, staring off into the distance. The vague comments about a different life and choices made for the best. The utter absence of her father, a void Elena had always filled with fierce protective love, but never explained. It all clicked into place with a chilling, undeniable certainty. The aspiring wrestler, ambitious and charismatic, could only be Rex Fury. And Elena's sudden heartbroken departure, coinciding with his burgeoning career, could only mean one thing. Rex Fury was her father, and her mother had left him, or been left by him, under circumstances far more complex and emotionally charged than Maria had ever imagined. The image of the faded photograph in Rex's wallet, once a puzzling anomaly, now became the searing proof of a shared past, a hidden history connecting two lives Maria had never thought could intersect. Armed with Martha's astonishing information, Maria knew she couldn't be dismissed again. The casual fan encounter, the hurried apology from Rex, that wouldn't happen this time. She had a narrative, she had context, and she had a witness. Her frustration from the charity event solidified into a fierce resolve. She needed to tell him, to explain everything, to lay bare the truth that Martha had unwittingly helped her unearth. But how? Confronting him in person had failed. Approaching him through his management seemed too formal, too distant. A letter. That was it. A carefully crafted letter, explaining everything, providing the proof he would need to take her seriously. She would pour her heart into it, just as her mother must have done all those years ago when she made her own difficult choice. Maria spent the next few days meticulously drafting the letter, each word chosen with care, each sentence weaving together the disparate threads of her life, her mother's past, and Rex Fury's presence. She recounted the diner encounter, the shocking glimpse of the photo, the subsequent humiliation at the charity event. She detailed Martha's story, the vivid description of the young, ambitious wrestler, Elena's profound love, and her sudden heartbroken disappearance. She included a recent photograph of herself and her mother, a tangible piece of evidence to bridge the gap between that faded image in his wallet and the living, breathing woman standing before him now. She explained her deep need for answers, not just for herself, but for the memory of her mother. She included her contact information, a phone number, an email address, a plea for him to reach out, to acknowledge the truth she was laying before him. Once the letter was perfected, a raw, honest testament to her quest, Maria researched Rex Fury's management company online. She found an official mailing address for fan mail, a P.O. box listed on his website. It was a long shot, she knew. Such mail often passed through layers of assistants, publicists, and security before ever reaching the celebrity himself. It might take weeks, months, or it might never reach him at all, but it was her only option. Her last, desperate throw of the dice. She sealed the envelope, her hand trembling slightly, and sent it off, a silent prayer accompanying it into the postal system. She felt a profound mix of hope and despair, a fragile anticipation, battling with the grim possibility of silence. The waiting game began, an agonizing period of limbo. Days bled into a week, then two. Maria tried to focus on her shifts at the diner, to immerse herself in the routine, but her mind was constantly drifting, replaying the scenario in her head. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart leaped, only to sink again when it was just a text from a friend or a notification from social media. She imagined the letter making its way through the mail, being opened by some assistant, perhaps dismissed as another crazed fan's fantasy. She tried to prepare herself for silence, for the unacknowledged truth, for the possibility that Rex Fury would never respond, that her mother's secret would remain hers alone. Yet, deep down, a stubborn flicker of hope persisted, a belief that the truth, once laid bare, would demand a response. Then, one quiet evening, as Maria sat alone in her small apartment, the familiar ring of her phone cut through the silence. It was an unfamiliar number, a long-distance prefix. Her breath hitched. This wasn't a friend. This wasn't work. Her hand trembled as she answered, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello?" A deep, resonant voice, unmistakably familiar from countless interviews and wrestling matches, rumbled through the receiver. It was the voice of the Titan, Rex Fury. "Is this Maria?" he asked, his tone careful, measured. "My name is Rex Fury. I received your letter." The words hung in the air, a momentous declaration that shattered the silence of Maria's world and unleashed a torrent of emotions she had held captive for weeks. The truth, after all, had found its way. The meeting was set for a discreet, private suite in a high-end hotel, far from the public eye and the prying lenses of paparazzi. Rex Fury's team had arranged it, a testament to his desire for absolute privacy regarding this sensitive matter. Maria arrived, her heart hammering against her ribs, a mixture of fear and fierce determination warring within her. The plush carpets and hushed opulence of the hotel felt alien, a stark contrast to the familiar clatter of the diner. When she was finally ushered into the suite, Rex Fury stood waiting, no longer the dismissive celebrity from the charity event, but a man whose face was etched with a complex mix of curiosity, apprehension, and a profound sadness. He looked older, more vulnerable than his public persona ever allowed. He greeted her with a solemn nod, his deep-set eyes studying her intently, searching for something, perhaps a resemblance, a connection. Maria, for her part, found herself studying him, trying to reconcile the larger-than-life wrestling icon with the man Martha had described, the ambitious, loving young man who had once captured her mother's heart. "Thank you for coming, Maria," Rex began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it, devoid of its usual booming confidence. "And thank you for your letter. It brought back a lot." He gestured to a comfortable armchair, inviting her to sit. Maria nodded, her voice caught in her throat. She sat, clutching her hands in her lap, her gaze unwavering. Rex took a moment, gathering his thoughts, his gaze drifting to a framed photograph on a nearby table. A picture of him in his prime, holding a championship belt. "I recognized Elena's photo," he admitted, his voice quiet. "The one you described, the one in my wallet. I've carried it with me for decades. She was the only woman I ever truly loved, but I never made the connection to you. Not until your letter, with your mother's more recent photo, and the stories from Martha." He paused, a deep sigh escaping him. "I thought she had moved on completely, found someone else, started a new life." He began to speak, his voice gaining a quiet strength, as he recounted a story Maria had only ever pieced together, in fragments and speculation. He and Elena, he explained, were deeply in love when he was just a struggling, unknown wrestler, barely making ends meet. They shared dreams, not of fame and fortune, but of a simple, happy life together. He described their early days, the struggles, the shared laughter over cheap meals, the boundless hope they held for their future. Elena was his rock, his biggest supporter, always believing in him, even when he doubted himself. Then came the turning point. He got his big break, a contract with a major wrestling promotion. It was everything he had worked for, his one chance to escape poverty and achieve his dream. But it meant moving across the country, immediately, with no time to spare. He was ecstatic, terrified, and desperate to share the news with Elena. "She was already pregnant with you, Maria," Rex confessed, his voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion. The words hung in the air, a seismic shift in Maria's understanding of her entire life. It was the confirmation she had suspected, the truth that explained everything. Maria felt a sharp intake of breath, a sudden, overwhelming wave of emotion washing over her. Rex continued, his gaze distant, lost in the memories. "Elena, she knew what this contract meant to me. It was my one shot. She feared that a baby, that starting a family right then, would derail everything. She believed she would only hold me back, that my dream would be sacrificed for a life she felt she was imposing on me." He shook his head slowly, a profound regret etched on his face. "She decided to leave, without telling me about the pregnancy." Maria listened, tears streaming silently down her face, blurring her vision. Her mother hadn't been abandoned. She had made an incredible, heartbreaking sacrifice. "She wrote me a letter," Rex recounted, his voice laced with the pain of an old wound. "A devastating letter. She said she couldn't go with me, that she needed a different life, and that I should forget her. She wanted me to succeed, to chase my dream without any burdens." He paused, collecting himself. "I was shattered. I truly believed she had found someone else, that she no longer loved me, and that she wanted nothing to do with my aspiring career. I respected her wishes, however painful. I left, believing I had lost her forever. But I never forgot her. I carried her photo as a reminder of the love I lost, the woman who had believed in me when no one else did." Maria's tears were no longer just tears of confusion or sadness. They were tears of profound understanding, of overwhelming love and admiration for her mother's selflessness. Elena hadn't been weak or simply heartbroken. She had been incredibly strong, making an impossible choice out of love for Rex and, unknowingly, for Maria's future. The truth was agonizingly painful, revealing years of lost time and unspoken love, but it was also exquisitely beautiful, illuminating the depth of her mother's sacrifice. Rex pulled his worn leather wallet from his inner jacket pocket, his movements slow and deliberate. He carefully extracted the small, faded photograph. He held it out to Maria, his thumb gently tracing the image of her young mother. "This photo," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "was taken by a lake, on a day filled with so much hope and young love. It was the happiest I had ever been. She was the only woman I ever truly loved. I never married Maria. I always chased the ghost of our past, of the life we almost had, never knowing that a part of her, a part of us, was out there." His eyes, filled with unshed tears, met hers. "And that part is you." Maria's tears now flowed freely, no longer a torrent of confusion or the sharp sting of sadness, but a profound, almost sacred understanding. Each drop was a testament to her mother's incredible sacrifice, a selfless act of love that had shaped Maria's entire existence. The weight she had carried, the unspoken questions about her father, the subtle gaps in her mother's narrative, all dissolved in the face of this astonishing revelation. Her heart ached for the years lost, for the truth Elena had carried alone, but it also swelled with an overwhelming, fierce love for the woman who had chosen such a difficult path for the sake of another's dream. The truth, raw and painful as it was, carried an undeniable beauty, a testament to a love so deep it transcended personal happiness. Rex, watching her, felt a similar wave of emotion wash over him. Regret, deep and biting, for the decades he hadn't known his daughter, for the life he could have shared with Elena. But alongside it, an immense, unexpected joy bloomed in his chest. He had a daughter, a living, breathing piece of Elena, sitting before him. He looked at Maria, truly looked at her, and saw Elena's eyes, her quiet strength, the same gentle curve of her smile. The resemblance, once merely a flicker of recognition, now shone undeniable, irrefutable. "She was so strong," Maria whispered, her voice hoarse, her gaze fixed on the faded photograph in Rex's hand. "She always was. She raised me alone, worked so hard. Never complained, always made me feel loved." Maria began to share stories, small vignettes from her childhood, moments that painted a vivid picture of Elena's quiet resilience. She spoke of Elena working 2, sometimes 3 jobs, her hands calloused, but her touch always soft. She recounted the lullabies Elena would sing, the way she could make a simple meal feel like a feast, the unwavering belief she instilled in Maria, even when they had little else. Rex listened intently, every word a precious gift, filling in the vast empty canvas of the years he had missed. Each anecdote was a stitch, weaving together the fabric of a life he never knew existed, a life that was half his own. He saw Elena not just as the passionate young woman he had loved, but as a devoted mother, a woman of immense character and strength. The missing pieces of his own life, the lingering sadness he had always carried, began to fall into place, not with bitterness, but with a profound sense of revelation. "Why didn't you ever try to find her, Rex?" Maria finally asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. It wasn't an accusation, but a genuine plea for understanding. Rex sighed, a long, weary sound that spoke of decades of suppressed emotion. "Her letter, Maria, it was so definitive, so final. She made it clear she wanted a life without me, that she needed a different path. I was young, ambitious, and utterly heartbroken. I convinced myself that she had found someone else, someone who could give her a stable life, something I couldn't offer at the time." He paused, his gaze returning to the photograph. "I respected her decision, however much it tore me apart. I believed that love meant letting go, even when it meant losing the most important person in my life. I never stopped loving her, but I also believed she wanted to be left alone." His voice cracked slightly. "I never knew about you. If I had, everything would have been different." They talked for hours, the guarded formality melting away to reveal 2 souls, bound by a shared past and a newly discovered connection. Rex spoke of his career, the loneliness of fame, the constant touring, the hollow victories that never quite filled the void Elena had left. He spoke of the guilt he carried, the constant questioning of whether he had made the right choices. Maria, in turn, shared her own dreams, her aspirations, the quiet life she had built with her mother. As the hours passed, a new beginning, tentative but hopeful, began to form between them. Rex, the formidable titan, spoke of wanting to be a father to Maria, to make up for lost time, to share the life he had built, and to support her in ways Elena had never been able to. Maria, still processing the monumental shifts in her reality, felt a connection she never knew she was missing. It was a deep, ancestral pull, a sense of belonging that resonated deep within her soul. Rex, with a renewed sense of purpose, pulled out his wallet again, the worn leather a testament to its constant presence in his life. This time, As he showed Maria the photograph, he explained the story behind it in greater detail. "This was the day we went to Lake Serenity," he began, his voice soft, almost reverent. "We skipped practice, just drove until we found this beautiful spot. We talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, our hopes. She looked so happy that day, so full of life. We imagined our future together, right there by the water." He smiled faintly, a bittersweet memory. "It was a perfect day, a day full of hope and young love. Before the world came crashing in." Maria reached out, her fingers gently touching the faded image of her mother. Younger, radiant, full of the hope Rex described. She saw the girl in the picture, not just the tired, resilient woman who had raised her. The weight that had pressed down on her for so long, the nagging questions, the silent void of an absent father, all lifted. The mystery of her parentage was solved, not with a dramatic reveal, but with a quiet, heartbreaking truth. The understanding of her mother's sacrifice brought a new, profound depth to her love for Elena, a love now tinged with an even greater reverence. She had a father, a real father, and a story that was both tragic and beautiful, a testament to enduring love and unimaginable sacrifice. The initial shock and tears had given way to a quiet sense of peace, a burgeoning gratitude, and a fragile but potent hope for the future. In the weeks and months that followed that pivotal meeting, a new chapter began to unfold in both Rex and Maria's lives. The initial, raw emotions slowly mellowed, giving way to a deliberate, tender process of building a relationship from the ground up. They met regularly, sometimes in the quiet anonymity of Rex's hotel suites when he was in town, other times in more public, but carefully chosen, settings where they could blend in as simply father and daughter, rather than a celebrity and his newly discovered kin. Each encounter was a step, sometimes hesitant, sometimes joyful, towards understanding the intricate tapestry of their shared history. Maria, though still working at the diner, found a new spring in her step. The existential questions that had unconsciously weighed her down for years had been answered, replaced by a profound sense of belonging. Rex, true to his word, encouraged her to pursue her own dreams, offering not just financial support, but genuine guidance and mentorship. He saw the spark of intelligence and determination in her, a reflection of both him and Elena. Maria, who had always harbored a secret desire for higher education but felt constrained by circumstances, began taking college courses part-time. She started with literature and sociology, subjects she found fascinating, slowly building towards a future she could now actively shape, free from the crushing pressure of solely providing for herself. Rex would often call her after her classes, genuinely interested in what she was learning, sharing anecdotes from his own life that sometimes surprisingly connected to her coursework. Rex Fury, the formidable WWE superstar, underwent his own subtle but significant transformation. The public still saw the Titan, an indestructible force in the ring. But behind the scenes, Maria witnessed a softer, more reflective man. He became a doting father, proud of her achievements no matter how small. He'd send her thoughtful gifts, not extravagant ones, but things that showed he was listening, that he understood her interests. A rare first edition of a book she mentioned, a comfortable pair of shoes for her long shifts, a subscription to a literary magazine. He spoke openly about his regrets, but always pivoted quickly to his immense gratitude for this second chance, his voice thick with emotion whenever he looked at her. The loneliness that had been an unspoken companion throughout his fame began to recede, replaced by the warmth of genuine connection. One crisp autumn afternoon, a few months after their first meeting, Rex suggested they visit Elena's grave together. It was a quiet, unassuming cemetery on the outskirts of the town where Maria and Elena had lived. The air was cool, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. Maria led him to the simple headstone, adorned with fresh flowers she had placed that morning. Seeing Rex standing there, a mountain of a man bowed in quiet reverence before her mother's resting place, was a moment that solidified their bond more than any conversation. Maria stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She spoke to him about her mother, sharing more intimate details, the small quirks and profound wisdom that had defined Elena's life. She told him about Elena's love for gardening, her surprisingly witty sense of humor, her quiet determination to always do the right thing. Rex, in turn, shared memories of their time together, painting a picture of Elena as a vibrant, passionate young woman, full of life and dreams. He described their first date, a clumsy but charming attempt at cooking together, the way her eyes would sparkle when he made her laugh. They both acknowledged Elena's incredible sacrifice, the selfless act that had brought them together, even in her absence. It was a pilgrimage of love and remembrance, a quiet testament to the woman who, in her profound love, had shaped both their lives so irrevocably. Maria found a profound peace in this newfound understanding and connection. The gnawing feeling of incompleteness that had subtly permeated her life for so long finally vanished. She had a loving father, a man who, despite his fame, showed her genuine affection and respect. And she had a deeper, more profound appreciation for her mother's immense love and courage. The initial shock and tears of confusion had transformed into tears of gratitude, of quiet joy, and a potent, resilient hope for the future. Her identity, once a puzzle with missing pieces, now felt whole. They both chose to keep their relationship mostly private for a while. Rex, ever protective of Maria and still sensitive to the public's insatiable curiosity, ensured their meetings were discreet. He wanted Maria to have the space and freedom to navigate her new reality without the blinding glare of the media. They relished their quiet family moments, the shared meals, the long conversations, the simple joy of being together without expectation or performance. It was a precious bubble, a sanctuary where their bond could grow organically, away from the noise of the world. The photo in Rex's wallet remained. It was no longer a bittersweet reminder of a lost love, a ghost of a past that could never be. Instead, it had transformed into a powerful symbol. It represented a love that had endured, a sacrifice that had been honored, and a family that, against all odds, had found its way back together. It was a testament to Elena's strength, Rex's unwavering affection, and Maria's unwavering spirit. The faded image, once a source of mystery and heartbreak, now held the promise of a future filled with rediscovered love, shared dreams, and the quiet, enduring legacy of a mother's selfless heart. And as Maria looked at it, sometimes in Rex's hand, sometimes in her own, she knew that her life, once a story of quiet struggle, was now a testament to the extraordinary power of love, connection, and the unexpected ways destiny weaves its most beautiful tales.